Content in this podcast is not legal, financial, or investment advice.
Almost ready. Race and food. 3, 2, 1, go. $200 remaining. Wins.
Just all that time you put into games or money and investment, either in time or money,
right?
You never get anything out. Well, you get great entertainment, right? And I'll still go in and waste hours where I'll never get them back. But I've created great friendships and we have camaraderie and stuff like that. But now you actually get to own these items that you achieve. You get to own these pieces. Like, you're giving, as a game maker now, as a company, we're giving you back the rights to own something that you bought, purchased, won, or were given. And I think that's really, again, well, not to sound cliche, but game changing.
Welcome everybody to our 11th episode of Metaverse Matters. We're really happy to have with us today Chris Ebeling from Virtually Human, and also, as always, my colleague Lauren Fenema. Chris, thanks for coming on today. Really appreciate you making some time. You've been doing some amazing stuff over the last several years, and I'm sure the brands that are listening to this would love to hear more about experiences. So maybe, if you wouldn't mind, just jump a little bit about your background, which I think is really important, kind of how you built up to Zed and the other games that you guys have been building. It'd be great to just start there.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. And thanks for having me, Lauren. Sure. And Michael.
Mm-hmm.
It's always a pleasure. And it's, being able to speak about oneself is probably one of the easiest things for most people. So I'll try to keep it short. So Chris Ebeling, my background is in traditional, well, it's not traditional animation. It is 3D animation, which was the next, iteration of animation now that we're talking about, technology and emerging technology. But I was a 3D animator and a digital artist for many, many years, working on big blockbuster movies and big games and cinematics. Down in Sydney, down under in Australia, where I got to work to the likes of the Great Gatsby, Matrix movies, Happy Feets, Lego movies, which was a lot of fun. Sure. And so always as an artist and as a creator, I've always wanted, and I think this one, I think I'll leave this nugget in there because it reigns true to the kind of education point POV that we're going to attack, is, once when I was starting out as a student, I really didn't have great mentors or teachers to show me the way, I felt. So when I was skilled enough and I felt I was a senior animator and I knew what I was talking and knew what I was doing about, first chance I jumped back and did nighttime classes at the same school that taught me, just to kind of go back and go, you know what, the kids that are going through this like I did, I don't want them to necessarily not have a teacher that could teach them what the industry needs, right? So I went in and did that, which I think, and I fell in love with it. I think, education's humbling and it really makes you know your stuff. And, the world needs it. Like, we are getting more digital, and we do need more artists and more competencies in the digital space, not just animators, but, creators, coders, all that stuff. We're not going to get less digital. Let's just say that. And so, it's an honor to be able to help that and move that forward. So I was in the industry for many, many years, and then I left Animal Logic, which was a big studio, and my home for many moons. And then they went together with the University of Technology in Sydney to build a special academy. And they hit me up because they knew that I was doing these. Had a passion for education. I knew my stuff. I was also very interested in VR and AR and all this stuff because we'd been playing with that on the Lego Batman movies. So all those kind of things came to, came together, and then they hit me up and said, hey, we need somebody to help build and lead this academy. And so I got brought on board in 2017 to kind of help come up with a concept, which was this innovation lab where it was a master's course, teaching people to be entrepreneurial, teaching people not just to create, cool content for the screen as we know it today, but also then taking those next steps and kind of having that foresight to take those competencies and then translate them over to AR, VR, extended realities, machine learning, virtual production was very new back then. And then doing a lot of cool stuff there. And we did that for 3 years. And so what was really cool about it was it's an industry-led practice, right?
Right.
I don't even have a master's myself, nor a bachelor, mind you. And here I am leading people to a master's degree. So again, another thing that I think is really, if I look backwards at my career, it's been disruption, like doing things out of the norm and trying to kind of rattle trees and shake cages to just disrupt and make change, right? And do it with a smile. So after doing that for 3 years, and then I was, getting itchy, and it was a super successful, and it still is a really great academy, UTS Animal Logic Academy. Look it up. The stuff they do is amazing. The students walk straight into jobs, not just in film, but in XR and VR and like emerging tech schools. So super, super cool place. And then my co-founders hit me up on the side. These are guys who I'd worked with in the past on, another side project. As a creative, you always creating. And that's always something I tell the students too. It's like, just because you're working on, let's say, the Lego movie for 2-3 years, doesn't mean you can't go and animate dragons and cool, like Lord of the Rings style stuff on the side. Just push, sharpen your sword for the different styles of the world as well, and just like broaden your competencies, right? So and so they came at me with this idea of, hey, there's crypto kitties and there's horse racing and there's this blockchain technology. We think it would be cool. You love the emerging technology and you do some cool stuff with AR, VR, and all this stuff. We want you to come on board as a co-founder and like the creative in charge. And so we agreed to take this risk. It was, and this was 2018, I think, or so. I got my years wrong because I said 2017. It must have been, there's 3 years from 2016 to 19, and then anyway, you can go fact check that on my LinkedIn. Oh, no. I wrote it myself, so it's very real. Yeah.
Timeline isn't as important,
Well, no, it really isn't when it comes to it, as long as as the substance is true, I guess. But so then we actually took a big risk, and I know, again, finally my friends and family had said, when I got this university job, they gone, "Oh, you got a real job, Chris?" Welcome to my world. Like 15 years of being like an animator and digital artist, where people just went, "That's not a real job." Really?
Yeah.
Well, it is. And so I left that and we jumped into this blockchain space, and lo and behold, the timing was great. Of course, the product for the idea was awesome. I came on and helped design the horses and design the look and try to bring in that sci-fi feel and elements. And, still a focus of ours looking forward is really like, how can we make these horses emotionally engaging? And again, I'm very big on these new glasses that are coming out and all this stuff. And, once Apple fixes their price range and gets something out there, the consumers will consume. And there'll be a call for content, and I get we always want to position ourselves to be ready for that next gen, that next level of entertainment, and that's what Virtually Human Studios is. So we formed that studio based on Zed Run, and our ethos is really the future of entertainment in the digital space, right? So emotionally connecting experiences. Not only do you race a racehorse, you really own it, and just having that ownership. Again, I always bring up the Tamagotchi. Just remember that little thing?
I definitely remember that.
And people, they love them, right? And they fell in love with this simple object in their pocket, right? And
I had one.
I had one too, and I remember it was not very, very nice when it died.
I know. I was like, which kind of happened a lot when I think about it. I was in grade school, so
yeah. Tough times, tough learning.
Tough times, that's right. Steep learning curve there.
But then imagine now with your future AR glasses, and you've got this, I mean, in my case, you've got your own horse in hopefully not in your bedroom, but you've got a horse that you can walk around in the street and you can feed and pat, and you have a relationship with it, and it goes on and races in a game, and scale is no issue in these worlds because it's digital, right? You can bring things up, bring things down. So it's really, and that's where we get into the metaverse speak, really. What is the potential, and what is the promise that is this, fluid term, the metaverse.
For those who haven't looked at, somehow haven't heard of Zed Run, which would be huge, I think, if you hadn't heard of it. But just for the common person trying to get a refresh on what Zed Run is, especially where it started, and maybe even just a little taste of where it might be going, could be helpful.
No, super. And I look, and us crypto natives,
Yeah.
preaching to the choir, of course they know, right? But I'm hoping, we and again, this comes back to that educational kind of thing. We need to go wider and instill confidence in the wider audience. So hopefully, for the people who haven't heard about Zed Run, Zed Run is a digital horse racing ecosystem built on blockchain technology. And so what blockchain technology, of course, does is it can verify that you own a digital asset, like a transparent ledger system, decentralized, you own something of a game. And I think that is really, really, really cool, right? Like I'm a gamer, I've played a lot of video games. Obviously, I'm a digital nerd. But just all that time you put into games or money and investment, either in time or money,
right,
you never get anything out. Well, you get great entertainment, right? And I'll still go in and waste hours where I'll never get them back. But I've created great friendships, and we have camaraderie and stuff like that. But now you actually get to own these items that you achieve. You get to own these pieces. Like, you're giving, as a game maker now, as a company, we're giving you back the rights to own something that you bought, purchased, won, or were given. And I think that's really, again, well, not to sound cliche, but game changing, right? and so we're at this like crossroad what like people used to call it play to earn, right? And I think, and I like to rephrase that to play and earn, right? Because we still have to focus on making games fun, right? What's the point of a game? It's a play, it's fun, it's escapism, it's a pastime. But there's an opportunity now to earn, because if you have a really good horse, like and if it can win you back these tournaments for you, it can win you back some rewards, right? And some earnings, which have tangible real world value. And that's, of course, that changes the whole psychology of gaming, right? Some people just want to play to have fun, so you should offer that as well. But as well as give the opportunity to those who want it. That's where you should say and earn, and not to earn, because those are very two different distinctions there. That the ones who want to take to that next level, like anybody who wants to be a esports or pro streamer, that's a serious job. That takes a bit of the fun out of it, because now you got to be really good, and you got to be on your game all the time, right? So it changes that psychology aspect of what gaming is. But at the same time, it has to be a choice to the user, and you have to give that agency back to your players. But again, I'm now coming back into your question.
Totally.
Yeah.
Lauren, but in terms of what Zed Run has done now since we started, I mean, we've onboarded a lot of people into the play and earn and crypto space. I mean, the beautiful thing is, there was an article written about what we've done. We've actually brought a lot of people into who didn't know about crypto or NFTs because of the aesthetic of the game itself. Threw them in, and then they had to learn the ways of Web3 and how how you transfer things from your wallet to here, and how you use Ethereum and et cetera, et cetera. So again, on the point of education, we're doing kind of our bit through a user experience, which, again, if anybody's out there who's building and listening and interested, that is a key to me. It's not about just throwing people and packing them, and this is Web3 and this is how it's done. It's about actually going and meeting people in Web2, and then through your experience, take them along on that ride through good design, human design, UX, make them, familiarity, heuristics, like look at things like Fortnite, Roblox, Candy Crush, like all these hit games that are in the Web2 space. Why are they so easy to use? And then kind of layer in then a strategy and how you can then take a user on a ride from Web2, and I like to call it Web 2.5, and then transition to Web3 if they want to, right? And so the concept there is a free to play and earn model, which I like to call it, like, because you want to be like I'm harping on here, but like a meaningful metaverse is inclusive, right? It fosters inclusivity, right? And so you want to make it inclusive for all to play and access, right? And so that's a goal of ours. But in the, you know, in the 4-year lifespan, it's our birthday soon. It was Zed Run's birthday. Hooray. That may or may not.
Congrats.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been
You've seen a lot in these 4 years, I'm
oh my
sure,
God.
as
Well,
we all have.
and in the blink of an eye, right?
Right.
Mhm.
And you never feel like you do enough, right? But then you look backwards and you go, holy shit,
That was
we
a lot.
achieved all that that we set out to do on our roadmap, right? Like we're
Right.
actually we're talking the talk and actually backing it up, walking the walk,
Mhm.
right? With of course mishaps along the way. Nobody's perfect. But we're getting there, right? But yeah, so we've been able to onboard, like we have like 50,000 users. We have 8,000 races a day. We've
Yeah,
given
that's
out, like,
crazy.
if I look at the website, it's about, you know, in circulation, we've given back, you know, from money gone into races and going back into stable owners' hands and in fluctuation in the ecosystem. It's about $45 million.
Yeah, it's incredible.
That's a lot of money, like that's been
Yeah.
just been trading around in people's hands through this play and earn game, right?
Sure.
We've been able to lock in like successful partnerships with big Web2 brands such as Budweiser, NASCAR, Stella Artois, Netflix, Atari. And then also we've done some real world activations with real world horse racing, like the Victoria Racing Club in Sydney, who runs the Melbourne Cup. We did some with the Preakness Stakes, where we, you know, there was actually, so in the Victoria Racing, there was actually real world horses with silks before the race having the Z logo. And then in Decentraland, we had a, you know, a party to watch the races. People were getting dressed up in like fashion in the metaverse, you know,
Yeah.
and we're bringing, you know, we had a DJ in there, DJ Havana, who's an Australian DJ. We tried to keep it kind of local because it was Australia, you know, yeah, just a lot of fun. Like, and a lot of these things, you know, are all about, you know, trial and error, because it's so new. Like you're walking down the corridor for the first time, and it's dark, and you've got a candle in front of you, and you're trying to kind of just make sure you don't fall over, right?
Yeah.
But you have intuition, and you learn from your experiences, and of course, you know, in some ways, again, if you keep it familiar and heuristical and focus on what successes of Web 2 is, you know what kind of strong foundations you can build on that will lead to success. So yeah, we're 4 years in, and we're running tournaments, and moving forward, we've got a lot, like we just before the new year, we released like an updated progression system for horse racing, because it was kind of not working, and we want people also to feel like they're progressing. So there's XP points now. You know, we've also,
I saw that you just removed the racing fees too.
we did. We
Yeah.
felt like, and that was again just listening to community. You know,
That's an interesting step though. And then I know Michael has some questions about your comments on UI
Yeah.
UX and kind of getting people into the
yeah,
Web3
awesome.
space. Actually, let's go there first, Mike, if you want to. I'm sure you have a lot to jump in
No,
on.
go ahead. Well, all right. You know, when I've shown the Stella example to you know, a lot of clients, and
Awesome.
what struck me about it was I felt like I was watching a movie trailer when I first went in. I was so taken aback at how beautiful everything was done. The horses were intricate, the race, the track itself, and the way you kind of just the camera angles and everything brought it in. I didn't feel like I was in Web3 by any stretch. I just felt like I was in a game, and
Awesome.
it looked super, super cool. And I think it'd be helpful for our audience to understand, like, what does it take to do that? I mean, that is no small feat. And
Well,
I'd be
yeah.
really curious to hear kind of a little bit behind the scenes, the team, how you guys think about all that, because it was masterful for me, from my perspective.
Wow.
And
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
well,
Mike is
I'm-
always talking about, just jump in to give more
Yeah.
context about how, you know, one of the questions we're asking so much this year is what will it take for the metaverse to go from niche to more mass? And the number one thing on like, or that we talk about a lot is that journey, is that
Yeah,
experience. And how do you help get over some of the obstacles and roadblocks of getting people into this space, and then
Yeah.
understanding, like you mentioned, exchanging currency and having confidence, especially these days with FTX and everything. Like,
oh my God, yeah.
how do we keep the ball rolling and
Yeah.
invent those flows that
Yeah.
then we can use across the industry to help people just get in and understand?
Yeah. And that's, I've got a lot of answers.
I bet.
Do
I'm
I want to give
excited.
them? Am I giving them all to you now for free?
No, you don't have to give us all your secrets. Yeah.
No. Look, look again. Education is education. Like these things are about spreading the word, right?
Yeah.
And I think so. First off, Michael, thank you so much. Like that's so humbling that you say those like masterful and stuff like that. I mean, we had the pleasure of working closely with the AB and Bev team, Stella team, and Lindsay McKerney, if you know her, she was leading that up, and she's since left, but
Yeah.
doing her own, and she's amazing. She's one of the pioneers in the metaverse as well. So shout out to Lindsay. Me and her worked really closely on the concept and then the design, and of course the team. I mean, there's nothing, you can't do anything on your own. Like
Sure.
I take credit as the guy who gets to talk and blah blah blah, but and I get good artists and get to build good teams that can execute, right? And then you provide feedback, right? And having been an artist in my journey, right, in my 15 years of being on what you say, like on the hot seat and doing the work, it's experience, right? Like experience is the best teacher. I've been so lucky to work with some insane directors and some insane animation directors and some really cool creative people. Like when you sit, and I'll be lying if I said I don't miss that part of being in a studio with 80 other animators or filmmakers, and you look over and you go, whoa, man, and your heart just goes like, how, but then you step up your game and you learn from just by being there around these like really talented individuals. So, and that's something that you also take to you when you build teams, right? You want to make sure that you have these fits and these people who are also open to sharing knowledge, right? Like you're not going to get anywhere sitting there and having all the cheat codes yourself, because you're just going to be in your little bubble. But everybody benefits from knowledge share, right? So you want to create that kind of culture as well when you build teams. So yeah, to sum it up, it's experience, like having worked with all those, from Zack Schneider to George Miller to a guy like Rob Coleman, who's the animation director like next to George Lucas. Yeah, a lot of really cool. Shout out to Chris McKay, who was the animation director for the Lego movies, but ended up being the director of the Lego Batman movie. And his background, if you remember Robot Chicken,
I
if you
do
haven't watched,
little.
okay, Robot
Yeah.
Chicken, what a, I mean, that's like South Park meets stop motion, right? It's
Yeah,
a
exactly.
bit raw, but that's I love that, because that's like they just went crazy and kooky and creative.
Experimented.
And so being able to work with somebody like that who was really open as well to feedback, and you're an animator and he's a director, but he was kind of like just, so that stuff is inspiring and really helps, like again, co-creation, right?
Sure.
And collaboration. And that's another, I told you about inclusivity, empowering creativity is another pillar of a meaningful metaverse.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Not just being us the creators, we want to enable our users to be the creators. Like look at, I'm going sidetracked now, but again, it will answer, it will all come together, because you're asking about UX and all that, and familiarity. Where do we meet people, right? And Roblox, Fortnite, what really kicked them off was when they opened up the tool set for their users, and it became Fortnite Creative, and it became and Roblox. They build worlds for each other now, right? And Roblox sits back and facilitates. Yeah, they do some cool things, but they're facilitators now of this ecosystem, and exponential growth happens, right? Minecraft, another perfect example, right? So yeah, so to answer your question, Lauren, I have to remember it. But yeah, how do we meet brands? You got to meet them where they are. You got to go into Web 2 and build that user journey through your design. Like I love the word heuristics. Like heuristical, like whoa, what's
it's
like,
one flying around San Francisco a lot. That word,
it's a powerful word, but it is magical, because heuristics is like, exactly what to do when you pick up one of these.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
swipe, you're swiping, right?
Right.
And that's because of great design and human design thinking, and it's also because it's been ingrained in us now, right? Could have easily, we could have swiped upward. Yeah, you swipe everywhere anyway. I'm trying to break the code, but I can't.
I was gonna say, yeah. Do you think that's part of it too, is like training? We're seeing, you worked with some incredible brand partners, and now we're seeing like the Nikes of the world enter the space in a more direct way. They've done a lot of experiences. Now they've launched a whole, initiative around Web3. So I'm excited about how they'll start to, for lack of a better word, train consumers to think about this journey and obviously Zed Run being an early player in that first like kind of cohort that really like broke the mold.
Yeah.
Do you feel, you know, when you think about the future of entertainment, is that in the back of your mind as well, as like kind of pioneering what people should be expecting in this future of entertainment based on what you're building?
Yeah, pioneering is also such a humbling word, but I think that we're here because of timing as well. Like we had an idea and we wanted to execute. We are pioneering. Like we are one of the OG projects that's been there, like I said, since the first cohort, and we're still here, and we're still building, and we're still figuring it out. And to your point, like we're still trying to figure out what this framework of working with Web2 brands looks like. Like where does it help us, and where does it help them?
Right.
And you know, Budweiser have been amazing. Like we're still looking at things to do this year, which are going to be fun.
Actually, could we dive into that for a second? Because like as a person, if I'm sitting at home and I'm like, Budweiser makes beer, right? And among other things, but like we know Budweiser for their beer.
Of course.
And it
King
makes
of
total
beers.
yeah, exactly. Total sense. I mean, I'm from Wisconsin, so for me it's Miller, but anyways, they, you know, thinking about how does it make sense, or as a consumer, I want to drink beer at a horse race, and now we're in the virtual world. Like what do I think about? Like, yeah, I'm not drinking, I might be drinking a beer, but like the point of me being in this virtual world, how do you kind of approach that with brands of translating their story and translating their appeal into this virtual world? So even though you're not, you know, physically there, you're still having an emotional journey or connection or whatever.
Exactly.
How do you approach that with clients and think about it?
Yeah, well, like we get to really, you know, we get to start with an empty canvas in some ways, right? We get to kind of break the mold of what traditional marketing is, but then also we have to be really smart and remember, again, familiarity, heuristics. How do we stay true to your brand identity? That's something you build over like hundreds of years, even. Like, how do we respect that, right? So there is a nice balance there where you get a bit, so you get to be like it's almost like a 60-40 rule, or you could go 80-20 depending on the client, right? Where you're then allowed to like freely just kind of go crazy sci-fi on top of their brand, which, you know, with so again, we'll stay with Budweiser with them, but because of the learnings with Stella, with Budweiser, we were able to push it a little bit further as well. So if I start with Stella, they wanted to come and they wanted to build a track, and it was like, okay, cool. And you know, everybody's thinking, oh, track with brand placement. I'm like, we're like, no. This is the metaverse. These are elevated horse tracks in a parallel universe, you know, set in 2170.
Right.
Like you're free to do like. And my pitch to them was, we want to make the feeling of racing on that track to feel like Stella. Like you don't see it, but you feel it. Kind of that kind of it's a bit of a cheesy animation talk, but like in animation you usually go like with all the squash and stretch rules and the smear frames and all the stuff, the magic that we put in between. You're not supposed to see it, you're supposed to feel that, right? You're supposed to feel the authenticity in the performance, not to be able to go and see that this thing was animated. You want to feel it's real. So in that similar vein, when you open up the Stella racetrack, you know, then we looked at some of their old campaigns, and they had this beautiful old campaign where it was this paletted colors, right? And so we took inspiration from that and created this environment where it's just, you know, it's Stella. It speaks to, it's a homage to their originality, it's a homage to their brand. And then on top of that, then we had to, you know, we built some skins for the horses, and that's where we got a bit more nail in the head and put a branding on it, because you know, again, then you became a bit more, but this is also the beauty of it. Like in this world, you can paint your horses, right? So you can go crazy with these skins a little bit more. And we decided, we had some crazier ideas, and you saw them maybe with Budweiser that you didn't see with Stella, was a bit more playing it safe. And that's just, again, negotiating with the partnership with their artists, and you know, things happen, you know, compromise. And if there's something that I'm really passionate about, I try to fight for it. But as you know, you don't fight for everything. You pick your battles, and that's how you know, business relationships usually work. Yeah, we created that really cool campaign. So from Stella, then when we went into Bud, which is also under the same, you know, umbrella, AB and Bev, they were a bit more wilder, Bud, because they'd already done their NFT, you know, Bud NFT, their heritage cans. And so they came to us. They were like really open to ideas, and then we wanted to create this Bud Pass. So again, you buy this futuristic bottle, and I guess my pitch to them was like, hey, how does if Han Solo is having a beer with RoboCop in 2170, or and you know, in a Blade Runner world, what
Yeah.
does Budweiser look like then? And we got to design this futuristic, you know, and this futuristic bottle, and it's got all sorts of ideas that it's self-cooling, it regulates itself, like all that planning goes into it, and it just becomes this one little animation, right?
Right.
Mhm.
It's just, and this is kind of answers your question, Michael, in like what goes into it. You always got to ask yourself like the who, what, where, when, and why when you build something, because if you understand the who and what it is and where it is and what time it is and where, you know, in this setting, then now, you know, you understand weather conditions. Are we in 2170? Okay, is it, what's happened? Is it dystopian or is it utopian? And then
Right.
once you write a little narrative that then understands, okay, what does a bottle look like in that sense, right? Or what does a racehorse look like in that world, right? And so that's a really good one, the 5 Ws I call it. And so that helps you get to that point where you then can design something really cool that impresses the client. And so they really liked it, and they had feedback to it, and it's got a little horse head on the top when it kind of loads up, and yeah, super sweet and super, like, what a, again, like an honor to work with these brands. And I think what was really cool, and shout out to Nick Sylvia, who's leading up from the Budweiser side, or the AB InBev side, it was like they were really open to our kind of, you know, creativeness and our kind of take on it. And, you know, and then it was just a beautiful relationship. And like from learnings of doing the horses in Stella, we got to be a bit more crazy. Like one of the horses in the Budweiser horse is like a glassy Budweiser, like original.
Yeah.
It's like, what would a horse look like? And it's like, and that's fun, man, because it's digital. Like, why be the, and this is one of the things I say as well, is like, why be the same when you can be different? Especially when we're stepping into these worlds that we can build from scratch, right? And that's the metaverse. But again, if you're too different and haven't got the familiarity, then you lose the people, right? So we can't reinvent good UX design. We can't reinvent like good human design, because humans have been, and I hate this word, but it's true, we've been conditioned to like something and expect something works. When I click here, I expect X, right? And so if you start breaking those rules, you're trying to break something which isn't relatable, and then you lose them, right? So that's kind of the trick when you're designing, is to make sure that it's still relatable, and then introduce new things as you go.
And
so
retrain.
Retrain, so slowly over time we get them going. So wow,
that's awesome.
I need some water.
No,
take some.
Well, you touched on so many things that we're talking with the brands we're working with about, you know, this idea of how do you think about your brand when it has to work in the real world as well as work in the virtual world. How do you morph it into these new worlds without losing all of the intrinsic values that have made the brand what it is? And that's a fine line sometimes to walk. And then, because you're putting yourself in this environment, right? We have to be there to serve the users of Zed, right? They're there for a specific reason. We have to understand why they're there. We have to hopefully enable, engage, and transact with them in a way that is not like communication, right? It's an experiential thing, and it's hard. So sharing that was super helpful. It takes a lot of planning to go through that.
Yeah, and then like the goal is to come up with a framework where that actually, okay, there's trial and error, but there's, again, let data lead you. Like, of course, always go back and be reflective and understand, like, and have these postmortems every time you have a campaign to see what worked, what didn't. And then the next time you do it, you take those learnings and then you do it again, what worked, what didn't. And it's like this, have these retrospectives as you progress, right? So it's like a kind of an evolving loop-de-loop as you move forward.
Are partnerships the way you're thinking about growing, you know, or, you know, I think about how you get people engaged in these games, and especially in these like volatile moments, which will pass and we will, you know, graduate from all of that. But when you think about just your business and how you want to continue to grow what you all are pioneering, is it partnership? If you can share, is it like partnerships? Is it launching new games? Is it, you know, all of the above? How do you kind of think about getting more people into your experience?
Yeah, so focus now is Zed Run. I mean, we have dabbled in a few other games and built them up, but right now our core focus is, of course, Zed, because it is our quote unquote it's our flagship, right? And we've seen so much success with it so early, and so, but partnerships, of course, like trust by confidence, right? Like, you know, seeing big brands as Budweiser, that gives us confidence that we're doing something right, yet alone it will give our community confidence and users that are coming from the outside. And then of course cross-pollinating communities, right? Like, for example, we've brought people from the real horse racing world into the digital crypto space. At the same time, we've got users coming into us, and then they've gone and they're actually going out and now in the real horse racing world, right? So it's this beautiful crossover of cross-pollination of communities, right? And so, you know, anytime, and so of course these partnerships need to make sense. And I think to, you know, the king of beers and horse racing has always been the king of sports, right? So in the metaverse, it made perfect sense, perfect match. And yeah, and then doing like in real life events, I think there's also something about and I'd like to think this is Zed Seeker's sauce. And if you haven't ever been to one, you should try to get to one. When we host some like in real life events, it's amazing because it's real humans, real energy, and not this just digital avatars. It's this mix of both worlds. Like we're in love and bantering and shouting at these digital things that really don't exist, but they do exist because of the way technology lets us emotionally engage with it, right? And because of the ownership of it, right? That's a huge factor in why you care so much. You're now invested, not, you know, well, maybe with money as well, of course, but also with time, but also with that fact that you now have a piece of the pie, right? You have that ownership. So, and then seeing the humans just getting together, and that's what's really key, I think, as well, is like behind every technology there's people, and then we're probably the more complex people, but the beauty is if you can bring people together over an experience, and these are people who have been Twitter handles or PFPs or you know, profile pictures and stable names, and they're meeting for the first time and they just are friends, like they are birds of a feather, right? And that's powerful. And we've seen that with Minecraft, we've seen it with Fortnite. You've seen kids hanging out in lobbies becoming best friends, and you've seen these videos where they then meet 4 years later and they just embrace each other. I get excited about that human element. They embrace each other and they're like, because they've been best buddies playing for, you know, hours and hours a day, right? Like such a dope powerful thing.
Powerful.
So but with you know, brands, we're always looking for, you know, brands that make sense, brands who want to step into the space. We feel like we have a really good, like, again, we're building a framework of what makes it successful, and then it comes down to education. You know, we educate brands on that journey, and we educate their consumers through our journey and through our user experience, and vice versa. They educate us on a whole lot of things as well. So
makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow, what a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, I have like 100 more things I could ask you.
Please go. I mean, I'm here for another 20 minutes easy. So
I'll keep rolling. I have a question about,
keep going.
You know, obviously behind the scenes for betting is not, in my mind, I would think like betting is not the easiest code to crack. And when it comes to like crypto and reimagining experiences. So you kind of like really went for it. I would imagine there's a bunch of AI and ML, like machine learning behind the scenes, or like definitely obviously algorithms working. And I know, and we don't have to talk about this for too long, but just like touch on AI and kind of if that's happening behind the scenes. And I know you have a few like perspectives on AI in the future.
A lot of perspectives.
So we could just like dip our toe into that, and maybe there's a part 2 in the future where we go further. But
cool.
Yeah, just kind of want to demystify that a bit.
Yeah, so first off, like with betting, I mean, it has to be very, very clear that Zed-Run is not a betting application at all, right?
Sorry about that.
No, don't be. But it's something that, of course, it's the first thing people think when it's horse racing, it's digital, and it's crypto, right? Then you go, hold on, it's betting, but it's not. It's a game. It's an ecosystem, and it's a game of skill, right? So we've made sure that it is a game of skill, and it holds up that way, and that's super important. In the future, who knows what the opportunities are there, but right now we're really satisfied with our approach to that. In terms of AI, I mean, using AI to identify different users, you know, there's a million ways to use AI. I mean, AI has been around since the 1950s, really. 51, I think. I was reading about it the other day because I was kind of, again, fascinated, because people are talking about it as if it's new, and it's like, oh, it's coming to get us. It's been coming to get us for a while now. And I just wanted to kind of read up on it and make sure that that was the case. But my opinions on AI are it's an amazing tool. And again, as an educator, and I'm still involved with the education space. Actually, I just actually came out of a meeting today with there's a big animation school here in Denmark, Viborg. It's called the Animation Workshop, one of the bigger animation schools in the world. I'm trying to help, rattle the cages over there to make them kind of go, hey, you need to teach these competencies, and that's everything from real-time engines like Unreal Engine or Unity, and how you use that in film, versus also how do you use that to build, metaverses? Because this new web there was a saying, a quote I really liked, which was Web3 is or the metaverse is the internet built by game developers, right?
Sure.
And what that means is it's going to have a lot of 3 dimensions. It's going to have agency. You're going to be able to move around, and it's going to be super gamified, right? As we're seeing. So who's going to make this? We don't even today. We don't even have enough competencies because of the likes of Netflixes and the Hulus, because they're pumping out like film heavy stuff that they're having issues. Like big film studios that I know are having a tough time finding artists today.
I mean, the content demands are off the charts right now.
Exactly.
So I'm waiting for that kind of gig to stop. It
seems
a little unsustainable to turn on Netflix or Hulu or HBO or all of them and assume there should be something fresh and delivered and beautiful and perfect for you to watch that's also compelling. It's like, it doesn't happen overnight.
That's where I go, if it doesn't have a good story, then and the story is king, right? Like you got to have a really good story to start. But again, we are spoiled now, to your point. Like, these uncanny valleys, like we see Princess Leia, which was an amazing feat when that came out, when she was in Rogue One or whichever it was. And you went, nah, it's not her, is it? And people were like, nah, blah, blah. But it's like, do you know what it takes to make that? Like that's incredible. And it's again, are we moving the needle or aren't we? And we are progressing, right? And then you see stuff like now again, like I'm really Unreal Engine, where you have these meta humans. You can go in and create yourself in like 30 minutes using the web browser.
It's wild
with their technology, right? So what they're doing, they're setting themselves up, of course, to be that creator economy, that creator tool set that will empower the building of the metaverse, right? Empower the users, which is brilliant, right? So hats off to them. There was a question, so AI in terms of it's a tool, and to answer what we just gone through, like in terms of we need to build these things. Well, AI is going to come in and help us build these things faster. Right. It's gonna relieve that kind of pain point where there's not enough competencies. And of course, artists are going to go, shit, it's going to take my job, and you just got to go, but hasn't it always done that through this history of time? Like the technological advances have replaced humans, like just from the conveyor belt systems in the automotive industry, right?
To our robots today.
The robots, somebody shared on LinkedIn a robot flipping burgers, and I'm like, well, if it works, I want to taste the burger first, but I also still believe that behind every, tool, every technology, you do need human experience, human design, human fundamentals. Like if you're an artist, you still need to be able to execute and have an eye for composition and color theory, and how, how you tell films and film theory, and you need experience, and you need real people to instill real emotion, right? And
totally.
I don't know if AI is going to get there. I'm not going to say it's not, right?
Right.
But so we are this kind of, ChatGPT, Midjourney.
That's the one that like hit my radar.
Man, Stable Diffusion, DALL-E, like those.
Totally. And with the chat too, I've been seeing so many. Just like a common example is like, and this is not as interesting, but like Instagram with a caption written by a human versus by a chat, and it's like you can't tell them apart, and so you can't, and
human needs to do better.
I know. Well, that's the other thing is I think it also unlocks potential for us to just continue to flex into the spaces where it takes that nuance and that consciousness, and again, we could riff about this forever, so we'll come back to the future of entertainment. But I do think that the machine learning behind the scenes is a huge aspect of creating these kind of limitless worlds and unlocking this creative portal, for lack of a better word, of 100%. Taking the internet from 2D to 3D. To your point, like we don't have enough people to build that. in the way that we want to engage in it. And so that's kind of, I think, what is also alongside it is this AI machine learning piece.
And it's scary. I mean, did you see just that New York schools are banning the use of ChatGPT?
Yeah, but like how
How
you
would
know?
they
And I
know?
think so now I'm like, are you gonna have to write your paper by hand in class? Like
Helps bring it
maybe,
back
you
with a
know?
feather, right?
I know. I
Cool.
was actually like, oh, people are going to get good at their handwriting, but I'm sure that's not what will happen. But it is
No,
very disruptive. I mean,
it's
in that
huge.
way, these moments will be a disruption to education. Of
Exactly.
if I were in college, I'd be like, okay, great, like write this
But
paper and then I'll
but
edit it.
but
Like,
is it any different than when the calculator came? And I know
right?
the answer is yes, but isn't it similar? Isn't it
Yeah,
just I mean, we then use the calc as long as you're not just going ChatGPT, write my essay, and then putting it in.
right.
Maybe it can inspire you, and then you put your layer on it. Of course, kids are gonna. It's the same as you get let's say you get 525,000 times 500 blah blah blah. You can do
Yeah,
that. You can do that with calculator, right? But then maybe you also have to show
how you got
how
there?
you got there, right? That's why
Right.
that's such an important piece when teachers educate is like, hey, I'm more interested in the process than the result,
Exactly.
right? And that's actually
Exactly.
key as well. Like when you teach like 3D art and all that, I don't really, the end result is what it is, but it's do you understand the process and do you fall in love with it, and
Mhm.
does it excite you, and can you continue to get better doing that process? Then the end result will of course get better at some point, because the time put in will do that for you, right?
That
But
actually sparked one more question. I think another big piece of this, like when we think about our clients and huge lifestyle brands or fashion brands, so much of this will be exciting to express their brand in these more
yeah,
like dimensional spaces.
yeah.
But the process is intimidating. Like, where do we start? Do we take our product and make it 3D? Do we go into a world like Zed Run and drop our product in there? Like, how do we get started?
Yeah.
That's like a too broad of a question, probably,
Oh, I've got
but
ideas, but
yeah, of just like
it,
when we're on the hunt for the right team or tools to help us
yeah.
even just get into the space, how do you approach that? Is it like hiring a 3D designer? Is it working with
Mm,
an agency? Like, how
yeah.
do you think about it?
No, yeah, good question. First of all, of course, you got to agree on what the brand strategy is, right? And figure
Right,
out like is a Web3 strategy is what you want. Okay, good. Is blockchain within that strategy? It's like
right.
it doesn't necessarily have to be in the Web3 space. You don't have to give away digital asset ownership.
Yeah. We do a
Um,
lot like that too, just to get
yeah,
started. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
exactly. But then you kind
AR
of
and yeah.
AR, is AR where you want to go? Is it VR? Are you going to have a place in Decentraland? Or are you going to go whatever the conversation may be, is just land and make sure that you guys, you and the team agree on what the strategy is and what the kind of roadmap will be. But in terms of, I mean, the beauty again, like Web3 or metaverse is game developers, right? It's the internet created
Mhm.
game developers, and there's a lot of game developers out there, but there's also a need for these competencies still. So they're we build our own team. We did we got a studio called Spectra Studios, which is an Australian studios that specialized in virtual production. But the reason why we acquired them or jumped into kind of cahoots with them was because they're super talented and they use Unreal Engine, right? They're specialists in using a real-time engine. And the real-time engine, of course, is made for real-time interaction. And so that's really key, that you can get that high fidelity or whatever kind of style you want. Again, it depends on the creative direction, but that you can execute at a high level that brings familiarity of real gaming that we are used to on a PlayStation 5, but to the web as well. Having said that, we build Zed right now. It's built in JavaScript, like 3JS. So we're kind of pushing the limits, because the reason we did that was accessibility, right? And again, that's one of the key pillars. Is I'll give you the last key pillar, which is driving prosperity. So you got empowering creativity, fostering inclusivity, and driving prosperity. I think those are three kind of key pillars you should put into a Web3 strategy, because then you are kind of speaking to the medium and to what the potential can be for your users and brands. But we built in 3JS because it's easy to access. You just go on a web browser and it's there. You can go on your phone. You just need internet. So on your iPhone, it's an iPhone 8 and above, you can watch 3D horses racing. You don't have to download an app. Of course, it caches some stuff in the background, but it's not a downloadable app. So we don't have to fight with Apple. We don't have to fight with Google's. You can just access that by having the internet. And I think that's a super, super cool. I'm really proud of the team as well.
Yeah, that's wild. I didn't
Yeah.
know that's what you built it on.
Yeah, so that's called 3JS, the script, the visual language that's used for that, and it's always optimizing. And we really push the fidelity as much as you can. So if you look at it and you're critical of ZRun, of course you go, but that's not really triple A. But there's ways to get around it, like you mentioned, Michael, like just camera angles and just like a bit of movie language and good composition and color and design. Like you can still design beautifully within the restraints you have. Right. That's a challenge, and that's it makes it even, can make it more fun. It can make it more interesting, because if you're building an Unreal Engine, you're actually got unlimited potential, right? Like,
oh yeah,
you can make stuff look so beautiful, and just you can keep piling stuff in, and it kind of goes whoa, 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 it goes big really fast.
yeah.
Whereas when you're kind of constrained, that's actually good. And there's an old saying in the film industry or in the art world, is to keep it simple, right? Or it's actually keep it simple, stupid, to remind you, so you kind of keep it simple, stupid. You have that on your desk, because when you're acting out a performance or about to design something, you start with the simple shapes, you start with the simple blocking, and what is the who, what, where, when, and why. What's the goal of this concept or this animation or this performance? What do I want people to feel? What am I selling? What am I trying to evoke? And then keep that simple and focus on that. So yeah, long. I ramble, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're not rambling. This is great. We're just sitting back and listening.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. This is one of the best ones. I haven't had to say anything. I love it.
Mike, tell me how you feel, bro. Come on.
Yeah, I feel wonderful.
That's good, man.
I feel like I've learned a lot, and anyone who listens is going to learn a lot. And Chris, you just have such a great way, as you know, like I said, when we met in London at NFT London, I just really appreciate the way you think about things, kind of how broad your view is of everything. And it's just, it all came out today. So thank you very much.
Bless, mate. Like, appreciate that. It is it's a view of many years, and I could still be wrong. Who knows where we're going, but I have a good idea that, you know, I got a
You've
hunch.
earned some secrets, I think, over time. So
I've got a hunch, but yeah, thanks so much for having me. And and to anybody listening out there, but feel free to reach out like anytime. I'm always up. Like, I think, again, like to what we were talking about before we start recording, education is key, right? Like, and I think 2023 is the year of growth, right? But to grow, we need to instill confidence, and to instill confidence, we need to educate. We need to actually all go out there, and it can't just be me, it can't just be you, Lauren, it can't just be you, Mike, even though you're doing a phenomenal job with this, right? It has to be everybody else who sees this. So it's my cry or call for, hey, each one teach one, each one reach one. You know, everybody needs to kind of echo outwardly and get out of their echo chambers, right? Like, stop talking to the same people. You need to talk to we need a you know,
some freshness.
Yeah, we need to inspire, you know, the layman, because, you know, again, you know, it's still early, right?
So early.
Like we're going through the first, like, or a couple. There's been a few up and downs now, but we're going to come through it, and we're going to be, every time we're stronger for it, and we're smarter for it, and the foundation gets thicker and, you know, and thicker. I mean, there's an old, I don't know, do you watch Monty Python? Do you remember the Holy Grail?
Oh yeah.
When Sir Lancelot, or no, it's not Sir Lancelot, it's the one where he goes into the castle, and the castle's built on a swamp, and that kid, he just wants to sing all the time, but then the dad goes, yeah, and the first castle was built on a swamp and knocked over, then we built a second one and knocked over, but then the third one, it was standing there, oh, I got knocked over, but then the fourth, and because of the foundation. So I think every time we go through those peaks and troughs, I feel like, you know, those troughs are just the castle, and we get to build on top of it again. And
whenever you can work in Monty Python, I think it's a good thing.
Oh,
you know,
they are, you know, but again, this is for a different podcast. Imagine Monty Python doing what they did then today.
Oh yeah.
They would be canceled.
Yeah.
Wouldn't they?
It wouldn't go over well. Let's just say that.
No, I mean, South Park, it's funny, they earned their stripes because it's South Park.
I love South Park.
But they started 20 years ago, and they're a huge inspiration, like Matt Stone and Trey.
It was one of my dad's favorite shows. So ironically, I would watch it because my dad, who is a history teacher and like just loved it, because it could get to his level, but also like very much entertain. It's such a genius show.
And it hits a nerve, right? It
Yeah.
It just talks about stuff which is real.
Iconic.
exactly. And then it
Yeah.
just like it's provoking the society. that
And
we're in.
it like opens conversation because it uses humor. And so these like
Exactly.
supercharged, really controversial
Exactly.
topics become possible to talk. Like we need a show like that today.
Well, yeah, that's why I keep rewatching, Monty Python and Life of Brian and The Flying Circus. It's just brilliant. Meaning of Life, brilliant
Yeah.
stuff.
Meaning of
Brilliant
life.
stuff. Also, Mel Brooks is another one I throw in there. I
Oh,
don't know. Yeah, he's
Oh, yeah.
pretty. You wouldn't see Blazing Saddles made today.
No, you would
No.
not.
No,
We
no.
we need to graduate from all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
history, man. It's part of it,
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Anyway, all right.
All right.
Yeah, blessing. Thank you.
Yeah, great
Happy
to
New
have
Year.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Metaverse Matters by Pebble Ventures. If you enjoyed the content, please do subscribe and rate the show. You could also connect with us on LinkedIn at pebbleventures.com or directly at mike@pebbleventures.com. If you're a brand exploring the space or you're already testing and are looking to develop next level strategies, please do reach out. We'd welcome an introductory conversation to learn more about your goals, where you are in the process, and share our thoughts about your business. Have a great day.